What's up YouTube, this is Ryan from AnnihilatorMTG here, and I'm back again with some more Modern. This week I felt like doing some experimenting. Ideally I wanted to run that 4-color Velomachus deck, but sadly Wrenn and Six is still pretty darn expensive, so I thought, why don't we run Jeskai instead? This deck is actually really cool. It leverages the card Indomitable Creativity paired with Dwarven Mine to cheat out Velomachus Lorehold. Once our Elder Dragon's in play, we get to attack and then dig 7 cards deep, ideally finding one of our 8 extra turn spells, those being Time Warp and Savor the Moment respectively. Once we've done that, the process will hopefully repeat itself until we've won the game. In addition to the combo itself, we're running a Planeswalker package of both 3-mana Teferi and Nahiri Harbinger. I've seen people run Jace instead of Nahiri before, but I figure she can act as a backup plan if for whatever reason we can't use our creativities. And as always, 3-mana Teferi is an absolute menace. Land one of these on turn 3, and assuming it survives, your turn 4 combo cannot be interacted with. By cutting the Wrenn and Sixes, we've allowed ourselves to run a full playset of Remand, which supplements our impressive removal package of both Lightning Bolt and Prismatic Ending. We won't be able to buy back lands, but the early game should belong to us, which is quite fitting for a deck that can win on turn 4. My only real concern with this deck is the opening hands. Things are going to get really clunky when you're running 8 extra turn spells, 4 of which you never really want to cast outside of the combo. I'm a little nervous, but it seems like a really fun deck, so let's hop into the first match and see how it goes. Alrighty, looks like we found our opponent here. Best of luck to you, my friend. And this hand seems decent enough, we'll keep it. They get things started with a Scalding Tarn, cracking it and finding a Blood Crypt. Then they cast a Ragavan, followed by a Bauble. Strong stuff from our opponent so far. Thankfully, we do have removal. During our upkeep, they crack their Bauble. We draw land. Let's play an untapped Sacred Foundry. Then we'll hit the Ragavan with our Prismatic Ending, and we'll send it back. Up next, they play another Bauble, as well as a Scalding Tarn. That appears to be it, as they pass straight through. Any extra time we get is a massive advantage. Once again, they crack their Bauble during our upkeep, drawing a Remand, excellent. Let's play the fetch, and now we wait. They crack their Scalding Tarn during our end step, finding a tapped Steam Vents. We see fetch number 3, which they crack immediately, grabbing another Steam Vents, and all they do is put their Lurrus into hand. During their end step, we'll crack the fetch and grab a Triome, unfortunately drawing another one. Let's play the Wooded Foothills and continue to hold up the Remand. Right on time, they play a basic Swamp and then cast the Lurrus. In response, we'll play the Remand, drawing another fetch, finally cracking the one on board for another Triome, and let's see if we can draw something good. Dwarven Mine is not what we're looking for. As is tradition, we're getting flooded. Let's play and crack the Scalding Tarn, grabbing another Dwarven Mine. We're just attempting to thin out the deck at this point. Then I think we're just going to cast the Nahiri. This is a little shields down, but if she survives, we'll be in the clear. Upticking and discarding the island. Wow, that's almost impressive. During our end step, they bolt the Nahiri. At the very least, she's soaking up cards. They play a Polluted Delta, then jam a Snapcaster, targeting the Lightning Bolt and then finishing off our Nahiri. We draw a Lightning Bolt of our own, think we'll cast it and hit their Snap. Then we'll play Dwarven Mine number 2, followed up by 3-mana Teferi, down-ticking to draw a card. It's another land, of course. Before combat, they crack their fetch for a tapped Watery Grave, attacking for 1, that brings them down to 11, and we'll pass. Out of nowhere, they just scoop it up. Their hand must have been pretty bad, if only they saw ours. So in this matchup, I think we're going to cut 2 Savor the Moments and 2 Prismari Commands. Then we'll bring in the Purges and the Mystical Disputes. Yeah, that looks pretty good. We'll submit. Our starting hand is definitely not keepable. This one is better. We'll keep it. Shipping a land. Now, of course, this hand isn't perfect. Far from it, in fact, but we have to assume that they're going to hit us with some form of hand attack, so we can't get too picky. They get things rolling with a Scalding Tarn, cracking it and grabbing a Blood Crypt, casting a DRC, followed up by a Bauble, which they crack immediately. We draw Remand. Let's play a fetch, and we'll send it back. Up next, they play an untapped Watery Grave, and then they cast a Seal of Removal. Oh boy, that's really bad. They swing in for 1, bringing us down to 19. Let's crack our fetch, grabbing a Triome. We draw another one, figures. Guess we have no choice here but to play a fetch and wait. On their main phase, they play and crack a Polluted Delta, finding a Steam Vents. Just like last time, they add their Lurrus to hand, attacking for 1. Luckily for us, they're not prioritizing Delirium. That brings us down to 17. We'll crack our fetch for another Triome, drawing a Savor the Moment, not really what we were looking for. I don't really see a huge benefit in sending the Teferi out to die, so we'll play our land and just keep the Remand held up. Without hesitation, our opponent swings in immediately. Just like that, they pass straight through. I have to assume they have a good amount of interaction. Let's crack our Bloodstained Mire, finding a Steam Vents. We draw a Lightning Bolt, excellent. Let's play another fetch and see if we can bait out some of their threats. They cast an Expressive Iteration. As good as that card is, I think we're going to let it through. Followed up by an Inquisition. Let's hit it with a Remand. Then we'll bolt their creature, finally cracking our fetch for a Dwarven Mine, drawing another land. Now, I would love to cast the Creativity here, but their Seal of Removal would blow us out in an instant. So I think we're just going to play our fetch and crack it for another mine, then jam the Time Warp. This might be a game where getting in for damage with 1/1s is super viable. Speaking of which, we'll swing in, taking them down to 11, and passing to our next turn. We draw Purge, that's quite nice. Let's jam the fetch, followed by the Teferi, down-ticking and targeting their seal. Wow, and they crack it in response. I assume they want to bring it back with Aluris. Either way, we'll attack for 1 and see what they got. They replay their Inquisition, no doubt taking the Creativity. Then we see an Unholy Heat, targeting our Teferi. They seem to be forgoing the Aluris plan for now. Once again, we'll crack our fetch, grabbing our third mine, drawing a Prismatic Ending, that's fine. Not super flashy, but it beats another land. We'll attack for 2, bringing them down to 8. On their main phase, they cast another Inquisition. Have to assume that they'll take the Purge here. Yes, indeed. And because they don't have the mana to both play and leverage the Aluris, they choose to pass. Ooh, look at that, another Creativity. Alright, so what we're going to do here is cast it with X equaling 2. That way a single push or Lightning Bolt won't be enough to fizzle the spell. We go for it. They respond with an Aether Gust, that's fine. Putting the Creativity on top, then attacking for 2, and now they're within double bolt range. Up next, they cast an Angrath's Rampage, so we'll lose a creature. This is potentially a very bad sign. That said, since we're drawing the Creativity, we might as well go for it. They choose to terminate the token and not the Elder Dragon. Our spell will fizzle. They lead off their turn with a very risky Thoughtseize, taking the Prismatic Ending and then jamming their Aluris. It might have been better to cast the Aluris into the seal. That way they could leverage the enchantment offensively or defensively as needed. Instead, they prioritize the Bauble. We draw Teferi. Okay, that's pretty great. Let's cast him, down-ticking and targeting the Aluris, drawing a Steam Vents, might as well play it. They play a Snapcaster Mage, targeting the Unholy Heat. There goes our Teferi. Geez, and we draw another land. If this keeps up, we're absolutely toast. Before anything else, they swing in, bringing us down to 9. Then on their second main phase, they cast an Expressive Iteration, followed up by another Bauble, cracking it, and then they pass. Then we see a Prismatic Ending. Let's cast it, targeting their Snap. We're not out of the woods just yet. This is especially true given that they cast an Engineered Explosive for 0. That all but turns off the Creativity plan. Then they just pass for some reason. We draw a Mystical Dispute. Since our opponent has a full grip and access to so much, I'm half tempted to just concede. Like clockwork, they play and crack another Bauble, once again choosing to just hold up their mana. The interaction just keeps coming as we see a Remand. I guess we'll just wait. On their main phase, they play a Scalding Tarn, still choosing not to do anything proactive. Whoa, hold on a minute, this Lightning Bolt might be the ticket. We likely need to draw a second one, however, since I don't think our opponent's just going to give us an out like that. And as I say that, they crack their fetch. Okay, this will be interesting. Let's cast the Bolt in response. As expected, they respond with a Drown. Since we have all this mana, I think we want to remand our own Lightning Bolt. They cast Drown number 2. Is this gonna work? We respond with a Mystical Dispute. And it does. GG's opponent. Can't believe that worked. Alrighty, looks like we found our opponent here. Best of luck to you, my friend. And this hand is kind of bad. We'll mulligan. This is much better. Let's ship a land and see what they're playing. They get things rolling with a basic island into a Memnite. Then we see a Welding Jar. Is Affinity making a comeback? That'd be sweet if it was. We draw another Remand. Let's play one of our fetches and hope they don't blow us out. Up next, they play a Glimmer Void and cast Memnite number 2, attacking us for 1. That's pretty tame. During their end step, we'll crack our fetch and grab a Triome, drawing another land. Let's play fetch number 2, and now we'll hold up our counter. Honestly, I'm a little surprised at how well this is going. Second verse, same as the first, as they play another Glimmer Void into a Springleaf Drum. Finally, they see some action in the form of a Nettle Cyst. We'll crack our fetch in response, finding a Steam Vents and casting the Remand, hitting a mine. That's almost 30% of our lands already. They swing in for the Consolation attack, bringing us down to 14. Yikes, we see an Elder Dragon. This is going to get real awkward if we draw the second one. Let's play the basic, and I don't think we need to flinch here. They don't have all that much power on board, so we can afford to hold off for now. They cast an Ornithopter, then redeploy the Nettle Cyst, and why not, we'll cast the Remand, drawing even more lands. They swing in for 2, that'll take us down to 12. We draw Nahiri, that's pretty good. Let's get the party started with a Dwarven Mine. Then we'll cast the Creativity, it resolves, and we've got our Elder Dragon. Attacking for 5 and triggering his ability. We've got no extra turn spells, but we do have a Lightning Bolt. We'll cast it, targeting the Ornithopter. That's honestly not the worst outcome outcome. They're down to 15, and I'm not sure how they're going to get out of this. For I think the third time, they cast a Nettle Cyst. This time it resolves, and that's all they've got. Drawing a Lightning Bolt, not bad. We'll play a land and attack once again, triggering our dude. There we go, we hit a Time Warp, so at this point, the game is effectively over, and it looks like they see that as well. Unfortunately for our opponent, it doesn't get much easier from here. Let's cut 2 copies of Savor the Moment and 1 Nahiri, then we'll bring in 2 copies of Stony Silence and a Shattering Spree. That should be overkill, to be perfectly honest. Okay, so this hand highlights exactly why this matchup isn't going to be enjoyable for our opponent. 2 of our cards are effectively blank, and still this hand is incredible. They get things rolling with a Darksteel Citadel and cast a Shadow Spear, followed up by a Tormod's Crypt. That's weird. Either way, we draw a Lightning Bolt, always happy to see that. Let's jam a fetch and wait for them to play a creature. Up next, they play one of those new artifact duels and nothing else. During their end step, we'll crack our fetch for a Triome, drawing another Prismari Command. Let's play and crack the Wooded Foothills. Gonna grab an untapped Steam Vents, casting the Stony Silence. It resolves, excellent, and we'll pass. They draw for turn, and then they scoop it up. Okay, sorry about that one, opponent. GG's either way. Alrighty, looks like we found our opponent here. Best of luck to you, my friend. And this hand is fantastic. Definitely keeping this one. They get things rolling with a tapped Watery Grave. No Thoughtseize. That's good. We draw another Bolt. Let's play a Bloodstained Mire and see what they got. Up next, they play a basic island and pass immediately. During their end step, we'll crack our fetch and grab a Triome, drawing another Remand. Let's play a Wooded Foothills and hold up our spells. I have to assume that they're playing Esper Control or something as they jam another land and pass. Once again, we'll sack our fetch, getting a second Triome. Hitting another Lightning Bolt, let's play the basic island. As expected, they crack their Polluted Delta, finding a Hollowed Fountain and casting a Charm. We could Remand this, but then they'd have a free Jace or Teferi. On the other hand, there'd be another chance to draw land, and we'll let it through. They play a Watery Grave tapped. Let's try and bait out some interaction by casting a Lightning Bolt. I doubt they'll bite, but it's worth a shot. It resolves, might as well go for the second one. They're down to 11. Us drawing a land here is beyond huge. This means that double Remand is in play, and we can function relatively well with 4 mana. On their main phase, they cast a surprising Stoneforge Mystic. Given our removal package, them playing Stoneblade seems much worse than standard control, at least in this matchup. We'll let that resolve. They find a Sword of Feast and Famine, then play a Glacial Fortress. During their end step, we'll attempt to bolt their creature. It resolves. Then we'll crack our fetch, grabbing a tapped Steam Vents, drawing a Time Warp. The decisions made within the next few turns are likely going to decide how this game goes. Right on time, they play another land. We draw a fetch of our own. So now the creativity combo is possible, albeit unlikely unless they tap out. They play yet another land. Luckily for us, we can fetch for a Dwarven Mine and threaten their life total with just the token. Drawing a Prismari Command, that's pretty nice. Let's swing in for 1. Before damage, they cast a push. On their turn, they draw and pass once again. Think we're going to cast the Prismari Command, see if we can bait out some interaction. Shockingly enough, they let it resolve. We'll discard the Ending and the Nahiri. Then we see a third Remand. Now might be the time to go for it. Let's play and crack the Bloodstained Mire, grabbing another mine, and casting the Creativity. In response, they crack their Flooded Strand, finding an island, then they flash out a Spell Queller. We'll attempt to Remand our Creativity. It resolves, and we draw our 4th Remand. I'm not super confident with the state of things, but we couldn't wait any longer. During their main phase, they cast their sword, then we see another fetch, they equip it immediately, attacking us for 4 and triggering the sword. In response to the trigger, they fetch. We discard a Remand, and they untap. Afterwards, we see them cast a Teferi, choosing to uptick, and I guess that's it. We draw another fetch, let's play it, then we'll cast the Creativity. They respond with a Spell Queller, and we're toast. This is a little greedy, but I think we want to cut the Prismatic Endings, that way we can bring in both the Mystical Disputes and the Spell Pierces. I say this is greedy since it would likely be safer to cut a few Savor the Moments. However, once we get into the combo itself, fizzling would be a disaster. It's a bit of a gamble, but we'll submit. Unfortunately for us, I don't think this hand is keepable. This one is salvageable, but I don't like it. Regardless, I feel as if we don't have a choice. We'll keep and ship a Time Warp. Let's get things started with a Dwarven Mine. They lead off with a Polluted Delta. Speaking of fetches, we draw one of our own. Think we just want to play a tapped Steam Vents. During our end step, they crack their fetch, grabbing a tapped Hollowed Fountain, followed up by a Drowned Catacomb. Right on time, they cast a Stoneforge Mystic. At the very least, we have a Lightning Bolt. Let's cast it. They snag a Batterskull. Wow, Wow, and we lucked out by drawing this Teferi. Let's play and crack the Scalding Tarn, grabbing a Sacred Foundry. Then we'll cast the Teferi, upticking for safety. Up next, they play Drowned Catacomb number 2 into a Teferi of their own, choosing to uptick as well. We draw Prismari Command. Let's play the Dwarven Mine. Then we'll downtick our Teferi, hitting another land and casting the Creativity. Now, unfortunately, the trigger for our Elder Dragon doesn't work with an enemy Teferi on board. That's why we'll be attacking him. Their Teferi dies. Excellent. And now all we can do is hope that our dragon survives. Sadly, that doesn't seem to be the case, as they cast an Aether Gust. We'll have to put that on the bottom. They play another land, and then they send it back. Drawing Teferi number 2, we'll uptick the one on board, then play the Wooded Foothills. Alright opponent, let's see what else you got. On their main phase, they play a basic island, and then hardcast the Batterskull. That's a pretty good sign for us. During their end step, we'll cast the Prismari Command, choosing Loot 2 and destroy their artifact, discarding a bunch of lands. Then we'll crack our fetch for another mine. We draw an Elder Dragon, that's pretty rough. I think it's relatively safe to downtick our Teferi. Drawing another Creativity, phenomenal. They're tapped out, so I think we're going to go for it. The spell resolves in an instant, so they're likely F6'd. We swing in, hitting a Time Warp, so far so good. That takes them down to 14. On our second turn, we draw another Time Warp, so 3 out of our 8 extra turn spells are accounted for. Let's swing in again. We see a Savor the Moment, so now we only need one more. Drawing a Prismari Command, attacking for the third time, hitting another Savor the Moment, feels good. As we take our final turn, swinging for lethal, and we got there. I don't think we need to change much. We could bring in an Emrakul, but I do like our current plan. We'll submit. Okay, and we actually have an opener that can at the very least function. We'll keep it. They get things rolling with a Flooded Strand, cracking it immediately and finding an untapped Hallowed Fountain, casting an Esper Sentinel. That's a little scary. We draw another land. Let's play our Scalding Tarn and send it back. Before anything else, they swing in for 1, taking us down to 19. Then they play a basic island, followed up by an Explosives. These Prismari Commands are really going to put in work. Let's crack our fetch, grabbing a Triome, drawing into a Creativity. That's step 1 at least. We'll play our fetch. Yet again, they attack for 1. That brings us down to 17, and then they pass without playing another land. It's unfortunate, but this will likely be our best shot. We crack our fetch, finding a tapped Sacred Foundry, seeing another Prismari Command. Let's play our basic island. Dealing with the Explosives, and to an extent their Sentinel, is the first order of business. Their desperation is very apparent as they flash out a Snapcaster for 0 value, moving into combat straight away, attacking us for 3. That'll bring us down to 13. If we can get away with it, I think we should just hold off on casting an early Prismari Command. Them getting a free card off their Sentinel isn't something that needs to happen. Drawing another fetch, let's play it, and now regardless if they draw another land, they're in a ton of trouble. As is tradition, they swing in before anything else, taking us down to 10. On their end step, we'll crack our fetch, finding an untapped Steam Vents. Then we'll cast the Prismari Command, hitting their Sentinel and Explosives, paying the 1, and it resolves. Excellent. We draw Savor the Moment. Let's play the Dwarven Mine. Then we'll cast the Creativity, holding up the Mystical Dispute. It resolves. Let's do this. Attacking for 5. We hit like 4 turn spells. Let's cast one of them. And our opponent scoops it up. GG's. And there you have it. This deck is certainly interesting. When set up correctly, the combo is absolutely backbreaking. I can't say for sure if this deck would have been better off with the Wrenn and Sixes, but if budget is a concern and you've already bought into Jeskai Control, it really is quite fun. I apologize if my voice sounds a bit off this week. Halfway through my recording session, my throat just started feeling terrible. I'm sure it'll be fine by next week, but either way, I appreciate your patience. If you like my content, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. I really do appreciate it, so thank you. And as always, stay safe out there and have a good one.